Hello and welcome. It is, of course, Worldbuilding Wednesday. Assuming I press the right buttons here, that is. Today is a day of, well, sort of rambling, but we'll keep rambling to a somewhat minimum. Well, as much as we usually can. We will, of course, be world building. We're actually going to world build, well, hopefully, somewhat heavily. The plan is to work on a city, the city that our campaign takes place in. We're going to add a bunch of detail and actually world build on World Building Wednesday. Isn't that a novel idea? As soon as I just make sure that everything here is prepared. Of course, we have our dice and all the programs and files we need. We probably missed a few. We'll open them as we go. It is world building, so it's slightly slower than usual. Well, we're usually slow at making progress, but I mean more chill than usual. I think that's the lingo you Elysians use. Well, without further ado, let's get to it. Let's world build. Let's see here. So, we have our adventurer Julian Aldis in a city behind enemy lines. We've been over this many times before. Well, not here, elsewhere. It's all archived somewhere. Let's see. Here we are. We've been following the adventures of Juliana Aldis and her her quest in the city and all that. But today we're just going to be working on that city, adding more detail, more maps, but mostly more detail. We're going to work on the small bits of it. Here we are. Let's see. So, where to begin? I suppose just with most things. With world building, we of course have our files and our base and everything to, I say base, I don't mean our storage base. I mean, the base that we work off of when world building. Of course, all of this, the law is the law, but we stat things based on the D20 system to make it as accurate as possible. Not that the D20 system's accurate per se, but it's the system we use to represent the world, etc., etc. Of course, we'll answer any questions that there are, as per always, to the best of our ability. I do have to tab between two things to see it. Unfortunately, as some of you might know, we have a limited ability to view multiple things at once. Currently, that is, I could probably fix that using this and that, but currently I was a bit late preparing, so we don't have that here, nor have we organized things that we keep saying we will, but that's just how it goes. Eventually, we'll organize things someday. Enough with the rambling. Time for the world building. I mean, we have plenty of time to ramble. Let's see. We have our base city. Some of it might be inaccurate. I know the area up here that we worked on is somewhat inaccurate. The left side needs editing. Some of this needs editing because it's not supposed to be the exact same as the top side. This is an underground section of the city, by the way. We are, I believe, one or two levels down, technically speaking. So we copied the top map, so we have a rough overlay of where things are, but it needs a bit of editing. But we're going to focus over here for the most part. For now, we'll be switching between maps. Of course, I need to get a grasp of things before we actually before we actually get working. I need to know what needs to be edited, what needs to not be edited. So the arrangement of these needs to change on the underground section. This can remain because it's a car park, assuming it goes levels down and up. So that can remain. Some of these stores might have below ground sections, but we need to get rid of some, rearrange some, that kind of thing. This is a train station that leads underground, so this can be exactly the same. And a lot of these buildings are college towers, so they do have underground levels. So that's fine with the larger buildings. Okay. But that's not our focus here. Making the map is the least of our focus here. We will be doing more direct world building. In my opinion, look, I enjoy working on maps. Don't get me wrong. We've been over this before, more than likely. I would put a lot of detail into maps. I have been lacking on doing that lately just because of time constraints and a lot of other things for my campaigns, but I used to do exceptionally detailed maps. We've been over this before. Often my players wouldn't even go to those maps because we run a sandbox kind of open world thing. So, I say that. There are quests and missions and, they go to some maps, but anyway. We are going to focus on just the details. Specifically, lots of descriptions, that kind of thing. I think we'll work on the city scale. We could do larger scale. We could work on any scale, honestly. That's the problem. That's really the problem. With Galactic Requiem being a whole galaxy and everything, and that we already have a base for everything and locations, and we have a lot already done. Like I've been over before, we've been doing this for years and years and years. So we have a lot that already exists. So we can work on so many things. We can add details to so many things. And it always feels, we're doing the campaign here, so we'll work on the city. Just feels weird doing small details for a city, you know? Anyway, looking for our work file. We will, of course, be opening and closing our work file as we go. Just so it's visible at times. This is, of course, our work file. As you can see, we have our world building scraps section where we do, scraps of world building. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay. So we'll just put our details as we go here. To begin, well, that's the hard question, isn't it? Where to begin? Well, let's begin by making the map actually visible to you. And it's probably not going to be legible. But what we'll do is we'll open this version right there, just in the corner. It's, of course, our small version of our window. It's been a while since we used it, but we'll keep that open. It will block a bit of the screen, but at least not the entire screen. Just so it's easy for me to take notes as we go. I hope it's relatively legible. I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. So, we have let's place some markers down. Oh no. So, I have to reopen a few files. Apparently, one of the things I completely forgot to open is our storage files. We'll just quickly pop those open. Honestly, just so we can get the default marker. This will be visible in a second on the map. There we are. What color? We'll make them orange. Why not? That's yellow, not orange. That's fine. As long as it's relatively visible. That's why I usually use blue or red for the enemies, because it's just more visible. Let's see whether the other one's more visible or not. There we are. That's better. Okay, we're just going to use this for notes. It is, of course, probably not going to be visible to you. Yeah, it's not. Unfortunate. So, Map Tools, the program we use, which is just great, by the way. It's a great program. It has windows, you see. If you click on something, a window will pop up. But unfortunately, we can't capture that window easily, meaning you won't see the notes unless we do this. Then, now, what? No? Oh, because it's a token. There we are. You still can't see it. Well, the reason for that this time, there. It might not even be legible. I'm not sure of the quality that it's visible, but in the bottom left there, information pointer, note that you can see, theoretically. Point is, I'm making personal notes on the info markers to basically know where and what sections of the city are and the like. Anyway, we have our base here. We're going to put that over here. I'm just going to store it in the void so we can copy and paste it to take notes. I'll read out what I'm typing when I place them, just in case it's not visible at any given time. So I'll just read them out. We're probably also going to note some things here, but those markers are mostly for knowing where things are for me. Because, sure, it's easy enough to write it down in the book, like right there, but the only way to actually note where it would be on the map if we write it down in the book is to use our nifty coordinate system. Which, if I set it up right, yep, that's 0, 0. So the two ways we could do it is to actually tell the distance in squares, meters, feet, whatever, distance-wise to get the two coordinates to know its location, but that's annoying to check. So I usually just place a note. Anyway, time for the actual world building now that we got the base down. The actual world building. Okay, we've decided, oh, I was supposed to copy it, not move it. Control C. There we go. I'm just noting as the name of the title. Shopping district. Well, it's more a block than a district. Actually, it's, well, if you want to be technical, the term we would use for this section is a lot. It is... How many lots? It's a lot of lots. So for measuring in Galactic Requiem, for property, we usually measure it in lots. For instance, as you can see by these houses, a house is 2 half lots. It's 1 lot, but arranged longwise, or that wise, like we can obviously just do that. It works. But houses are 2 lots. There's also a half lot. Sorry, it's 1 lot. There's also a half lot. Technically, this is 4 lots, making a square. And it's 4 by 4 lots for a total of 8, or, well, not total of 8, total of like 16 or something like that. Yeah. But point is, it's measured in lots. This is this is 4 housing blocks, technically 2 by 2. I think we call it a megalot or something like that. I'd have to check my notes. It's not really important. We're rambling. Let's get back on track. Anyway, we'll just label it a shopping district, even though it's just a few lots. We will, like I said, have to rearrange it. This is going to remain. We'll keep the larger buildings. Smaller buildings we might rearrange because they're different at the bottom level, more than likely. But we're not going to work on the map. We're just going to work on some details. I'll note them. We'll make 2 quick notes. Let me make sure I'm clicking on the right thing. 157 by 157. 157 by 157. Let's interact with our notes. Grid 157, 157. Shopping lots. Now we'll take notes here. That way they're actually somewhat visible. Let's get a better view. Just slightly better view. Nope. Not supposed to do that. There we are. So now it's somewhat visible. I mean, I could make the notes larger, honestly. Let's see. 1 second. There we are. Yeah, we'll use the small notes for now. There we go. So, what do we know about these shopping lots and what do we want to add to them? They're not in the best district. We'll note that. Not the best district. We'll note that. What do we call them? What do we call them? Not people. I mean, they are people, but, what's the term? We'll just say people. I was trying to be like the locals. Locals is the term I'm looking for. Locals are not really close. Reluctant to... No, not reluctant. Locals are distrustful of non-locals? Not work with? They're tied to the local gangs. Not really tied to. I don't know the word for this. Not off the top of my head. They're not tied to, and they don't work for, but it's more than tolerant of. It's more than tolerant of, like, it's They work with, but not work with. There's a term for it, but I'm just blanking on it. Hmm. We'll put live under. Okay. What else? What else? It's not the best district. Locals are distrustful of non-locals. Locals live under the local gangs. Illegal goods, drugs, and services can be found here. Okay. Mostly normal stores. We'll make a sub-note here. From people hanging around the district. The stalls are mostly normal stalls. I mean, not all of them, but illegal goods, drugs, and services usually got by people just milling about in the corridors and hallways between the stalls and the like. That stories will go floors. The shopping area is several floors up and down. It's rather large-ish. It's a vertical mall, if you will, sort of. Not really, but sort of. Let's see. There's more. There's always more. Shopping has several floors up and down. Is there? I mean, there's. We can go into more specific details, of course. Let's see what details we want to actually add. I'm just going to give the map a glance. Ooh, idea. So, several ideas just popped to mind. We'll note the first one down first. Actually, the second one down first, if we're being technical in the order I thought of them. Clothing store. A convenience store, something I can spell. Convenience. That's also not the first one I thought of. The first one I thought of is a sort of a travel supply store. It's not really what I'm. Convenience store is technically more accurate, but not entirely a convenience store. It's hard. I mean, there's probably a word for it. I'm also blanking on. What I mean is, like, it's a store that you can get what you need for a trip out. Sort of like a convenience store, sort of, but less food oriented. I always think of convenience stores as more food oriented. They would sell food at this kind of store, but more dedicated to a day or longer out. Not like a camping store though. Like you live in this arcology block, okay? Let's say you live in this arcology block. Something that's visible? Yes. You live here and you're going on a trip. You're going to take the train to another part of the city, okay? So you might stop here, get some things before you hop onto the train and go out for the day or longer. That kind of a store that sells stuff for your trip. Not like a long trip, not like a vacation. This is a lower class area, so more um not like a vacation place, but sort of like a supplies, but not really supplies. General, a general store. I mean, that's more old timey, but that's what we're talking about. Okay. Because I mean, while there are apartments and that kind of thing, and like hotels and all that, it's not like you'll have your things there, so you might need some things to travel there and that kind of thing. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure myself. Being an Imperial Lord, it's not like we stay in places that aren't our own ships or palaces or so forth, or the palace of another Imperial Lord or the like. Of course, back in my conscript days, it was just mostly the field or military bases, and in the before that, we just stayed in the city. I mean, it's the Empire, you know? It's not like we don't have not cities. We do. There's forests and the like on Imperial worlds. But I lived in a city. Sort of. Let's see. And of course, there's, I mean, almost always somewhere to stay in the Empire. That's the benefit of the Empire. Sort of. I mean, I say almost always somewhere to stay. There's reasonable places everywhere. It's not like you'll go somewhere and there won't be supplies. I say supplies, but I mean like, anywhere you go in the Empire, you're probably going to find what you need in the city. Like, it's not like you need to get things that you aren't going to get somewhere else. Besides, you can just order it on the net and they'll deliver it. Here we are. Those are some of the main stores. There's, of course, a mechanic, clothing, convenience. Let's look at the map again. Is there a specific word for that? Give me a second. We're doing a bit of research. Can't really bring it up on screen, but we're going to do a little bit of research. And by a little bit of research, I mean we're just going to bring up the data net, do a little data net search. Click there. Bring up Data display. That's what we're looking for. Department store. I believe. Give me half another second. Yes. Okay. Now we go over to here. Department store. Now we'll take our notes here. Do a little copying. Do a little losing our place in the file. Do a little pasting. There we go. Now we copy that again. And we move that data into the token. There we are. Now our shopping district token, at least for my use, has a bit of details on what it is and does. So we should also add that to it. Luckily, we can do it a lot faster now that I've prepared it. So we'll just go like that, like so. Go into him. Perfect. So, in total, we know that this area is several shopping lots, not the best in the district. Locals are distrustful of non-locals. Locals live under the local gangs. You can get illegal goods and services here, mostly from people hanging in the district and not really the stores themselves per se. They are mostly normal stores, not all of them, of course. Shopping areas several floors up and down. There's a travel general supplies store, department store, convenience store, clothing store, and a mechanic. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's more than 5, but that's fine because we're going to make one extra large down here. And for that, what we're going to do is we're just going to go like this. This will be fun. I say fun, but it's not really fun. It's just a thing. I'm gonna make that longer. We'll remove that. Go like this. Why not? Then, like I said, we were going to rearrange this. That will do as a rearrange. That's good enough. I like that because each store represents something, at least to me. We have a sort of more convenience store. We have a general goods store. We have a mechanic here, which you can drive into from the place. We got the other big store. We have a bunch of other ones. I think it works like this. Of course, you can travel between stores inside. Okay. So this has been rearranged more than enough, and we have our note there. We can, of course, go into even more detail. We can list even more stores. We could even, we're not going to, but we could even stat each of the stores. because we can stat businesses and organizations, but there's really no use. I also need to still go in and specify more generally what each base stat is just a bit better. I mean, the system works, at least mostly works. Like it works. It just needs more specification that I never got around to doing of saying what each stat represents. Not what it represents, but like, let's put it this way. Nope, we're not going to put it anyway. We don't have it in front of us. Basically, stats go from 1 to 100 for organizations. Obviously, a store probably doesn't have 100 in its stat, but it probably has more than 1. Generally, if I have the thing in front of me, I'll give it a quick glance to see whether we have it available for our viewing. Well, my viewing. Unfortunately, we don't have it available for your viewing, but I mean, I could always just copy it into the thing, but formatting. Here we are. Here we are. Okay. So, right here, it's a loose list. So we have how it all works, but we have a loose list of rough equivalent. So a small business probably has 3s in its stats. I don't know if that's accurate. These are just examples, which is what I need to refine. So it's like a small business has 3 in its stats. Maybe that's right. Maybe that's wrong. Not sure, but that's what we currently have it listed as. Not sure if that's accurate. Maybe, maybe not. See, I'm not going to change it right now because it would just be me doing a lot of thinking and typing. Not really anything you can see, just like scratch paper typing. I mean, I could scratch paper right here, but it's really not worth it. That is something I would rather do on my own because it's not really world building. I just think it'd be real, you know, boring watching me go like this. I'll give you an example of why we're not going to do it. Don't worry, we're not actually going to do it, but here's a loose example. We're going to start and show you why it's not worth it. Okay, so, no, please. Thank you. Okay, so assuming it has 3 in all its stats, meaning the business is worth about 5 million credits. About 5 million credits. That would be divided amongst what its stats are, with stats of 3. The total cost to upgrade its stats to 3 is 600,000 total to get its stats to 3. There are a total of 6 stats minus 1 because they don't have anything in occult. So we ignore occult for the most part. So that's 600,000 times 5 for a total of 3 million, leaving them 2 million to spend on territory, lots, everything else. 2 million on everything else. Okay. So they would have to be, well, we're not really studying the organizations as an example of figuring out whether the math is right or not. But from there, what we would do is we would input those stats, use the space money to buy the building that they're working out of. More than likely, we might give them a bit more money. It's not like it's required, but we could give them a bit more money to buy their resources and so forth, dictate how many workers they have, that kind of thing, and then we can start rolling their monetary gains and so forth, take a few turns as the nation, well, organization, and so forth. Anyway, what I wanted to see is with 3s in their stats, that would give them minus what? 3s in their stats would give them, scrolling through the book, minus 4 on their roles, which isn't bad. I know that sounds terrible, but it's -4 on the organization's assist check. Of course, their workers have a +6 as standard workers, assuming they're standard workers. Now, you don't add a -4 to the workers' check because it's an assist check. What happens is the organization, rolls an assist. So an organization's assist uses the worker's 6. So let's say, just for simple example, the organization tries to make money. What would happen is the workers would make a base check, 8 plus 6, 8 plus 6, 14. So they'd also get the assist bonus on that. So for the assist, it's workers, D20, 8 plus 6, actually, the same, 14, -4, because the organization's assist bonus is -4, 12. So they would get a total of +2 on their assist to the previous thing. So it's not like a -4 on the thing, it just means the assist is worse. Every 5 points, the assist gets an additional +1, etc. So it's not like it's a severe penalty. It's not like it's bad to have even a 1 in your, or I mean, it's not what you want, but it's not bad. They can still likely pull off an assist with they have a 50-50% chance. A little bit better because of 6 base, 1 is -5. So there's a +1, meaning they'd have to roll a 9 to get a +2 base assist, which is like a bit better than a 50-50 roll to get a +2 on their check. So it's not like it's bad having a 1, but you want higher. Of course, you can also put points in the organization's skills, which also boost that. Anyway, as you can see, this is the kind of thing we deal with. Like, if you want to know, when I say working on Galactic Requiem, it's not only running the game, playing the game, progressing the game, making sure things in the galaxy progress, statting things, that kind of thing, and sometimes playing the game. It's also figuring out whether all the math is right and what the statistics are and working on that kind of thing, which is what we're not going to do here. But you get the point of like what I mean of why we're not going to do that, because it's a lot of what you just saw there, going over the math of it, seeing whether the math's accurate. I mean, I'm going to do one more thing in regards to it because now I'm genuinely curious. So my apologies. So if they have a 3, let's go back to our nations thing. With a 3, that means they can draw 60,000 bucks worth of resource, like for a variety of things. Like they can draw 60,000 worth of resource. Not bad. That's per month, by the way. They can drop that per month. On top of that, with the 3 in the stat, they can also, affect, and not only can they draw 60,000 bucks worth of resources, they can also use 60,000 bucks worth of request. So theoretically, a small business could get a gang together to do stuff for them for like 4 times. They could get a reasonable gang support 4 times, give or take. Of course, they'd be spending their resources and influence and money to do that. They don't really have force, so they'd have to likely use influence to do that, which would give them less chance of doing it, which would increase the DC of it, but like theoretically. They would also need to actually have access. Your organization can't technically draw from resources it doesn't have, Like if you, technically, a military with 60,000 bucks could draw out once. Like it's not the cost of it, it's like not buying the thing. They can request help from like marksmen in a helicopter for their 60,000 worth of value. they would be completely out at that point and have to wait for the next thing in order to do it. But like you would need force score to do that, so you'd likely need a military sort of built organization to be able to pull that off, because a shopping thing would have basically none in their force score, so it's not like they could actually achieve doing that, unless they have connections or something. In which case, like I said, they'd be rolling with influence or something to get it done. Or we might just deem that they can't do it because they don't have access to that kind of resource. But the point is, like, that's what you could do with a 3, loosely, give or take. However, with the 3, they would have to take 20 on the check? Actually, they'd have to take 10 on the check. No, it's an ability check, so the penalty applies directly. So yeah, they'd have to take 20 on the check if they wanted to basically even attempt to influence somebody to give them helicopter support, assuming they have high enough influence and an actual contact that can. And that's where the contacts come into play. As you might have seen, maybe, contacts are a thing in game that you can gain, and you can know people, and contacts is what you would likely draw upon to acquire that if you don't have it yourself. So they'd have to have a contact and all that. Anyway. Let's see. So, enough of that. That's just our quick series of examples. And why we don't do that here, I will save that for me just staring at documents. Admittedly, I actually did that far more engagingly, believe it or not, than normal. And by that I mean, trust me, it's usually, I was trying to still be entertaining while doing it. Trust me, it's usually genuinely just staring at a sheet, not really reading out, just staring, going, is that math right? I guess I should bring up my calculator, do some math on the calculator, run the math like 3 times to the calculator, type down the results, look at it some more, run the math, type down a different variant of those results, see which one's more accurate, etc., you know? Actually running the organization is much more fun than that. What we're talking about is specifically like going over whether the stats are right, figuring out whether we set up the system right. Actually running the organization, you take turns and actions, and enemies take actions, and you take actions, and you get in. We're going to try and influence them to sort of damage them with a media campaign. Let's roll our media bonus. 7 plus our 6 for our workers, plus minus 3, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 12, and 10, which means we're going to get our plus 2 on our next check. 12, 18, for a total of 20. So we're going to hit them with the 20, which technically would be their AC, meaning since we didn't choose any special, we're going to just roll a base, which is going to apply 3 damage to their crisp health. They, on their turn, are going to spend one of the actions to boost their defense, and then they're going to strike back using they're not going to media back, the enemy is going to choose to, etc. And like, it's more combat-like and more taking up positions, moving your units, because in actual nations, you do get units, usually of like 50 people. 100 for worker units, but worker units are bad at everything but working at task and gaining currency. But you get elite units who can do better things, groups of 50, and then they actually have to be in places on the map in order to do things, unless they can do it online. Like a media campaign you can do online. If you actually want to attack an enemy structure, and so forth, you'd have to move your unit to their structure and the like. But usually, that's usually on much larger scale. Usually you don't really use, you use elite units, but they don't usually have to move on the map, because a turn, what you must remember, is you can go into small scale. Like for resolving a gunfight, you can go into smaller scale, but for like media stuff, let's say you do have to go somewhere to put up posters. If they're not going to get engaged in combat, their turn is usually like 2 actions a week. So it's not like we need to be like, oh, can they move there? It's 2 actions a week. So like if you're trying to place posters over here, that's a few minutes walk. We're not going to, that's like not even half a turn. If you're traveling 3 days to get somewhere before you put up the posters, that's a half a turn to move there. Then you get a half turn action to say put up the posters and like, and then they'd be stuck there until next turn, in which they can move back and get another action or et cetera, et cetera. So distance matters in organization scale, and even more so in nation scale when you're traveling both on this scale and also across the galaxy. Nations also take, however, weekly scale. Same with organizations, it's weekly scale. So their movement on planet matters, but also if you're a nation, hell, if you're a big enough organization, you can just buy a car or a transit. Like there's a train line here. You can probably take the train somewhere a lot faster than walking them, you know? And technically, like it loosely counts like money-wise transit. I'm not gonna lie, like given the way the rules work, we care ever so slightly about transit, but we really don't. Like, you know what I mean? Let me put it this way. On the organization scale, hiring a car, like hiring a car, is a DC-1 and like 1,000 credits. And that's like for an entire section, for an entire turn or more, or something like that. I think it's like for a turn. Hiring a car is like, not one action, but like a full turn. Hiring a car is like, might even be for 4 turns. I forget the exact amount. I think it's 1 turn. Yeah. But it's like $1,000. So like, and that's not from your personal, that's from your organization's request fund, which is separate. It's not like you're actually paying for that. You literally just pull it from your request fund, which can literally only be used for requests. So, you know, we're probably not going to look as, let me let you in a secret. Unless your organization's running super, super tight on money and you're like a fresh organization or something, like if you have multiple stores and you're earning hundreds of thousands, like hundreds upon hundreds of thousands, I'm probably not going to nickel and dime you as your GM on it, unless it's like, oh, we're near bankrupt. Does it matter whether you rehire the car? If it matters in that sense, you know, we might. But if it's like we're a super large organization, we're Omnicorp, then I mean, I'm just going to be like, yeah, you can hire a car. Hell, you can buy a car and then keep it for your organization to drive them from location to location. My point is like, you know, for 20 of those, $20,000, buy a car. And an organization, like a good organization, has about 100, 100 or so? 100 workers times 16. No, not 16 is the average roll you roll when making money. If you take 10 and workers average is 6, let's say you're not even getting a bonus, times 100 for the monetary just accounting, times 100 for workers, you earn 160,000 for one worker unit of 100 workers. So you can buy, divided by 20,000, 8 cars in 1 week. Well, probably less, you have to pay them half. So 4 cars a week you could buy, technically. Being the one facing the TV is more conductive to seeing the TV. Indeed. Welcome. We're just building sci-fi worlds. Cheers to you too. Let's see. So, yeah, like 4 cars for 1 week of a one worker organization, assuming you spend half the money paying them. But then, even then, like, you're at half. You probably don't want to buy 4 cars if your organization works 1 week, because I mean, it's just not worth it. You probably want to save up to increase your stats. Increasing your organization stats also takes money, which you of course want to save up because you want probably more than like a 3 in your stats. Anyway, for the most part, point is organizations have their own system that can go in depth or as not in depth as the players want for it. But like I said, we're not really here for starting an organization. I just sort of went off on a side tangent about the organization rules. We are known here to go off on tangents. Mostly because we just finished the base of the shopping district and what goes. Well, of course, we can always go more in detail of what's in the shopping district. But like I said, we're not really going to stat each of the shopping districts' shops, which we could, but we're not going to. As I've said before, we follow the Traveler, which is another tabletop RPG system. We follow their system of map only as really necessary. And as much as I love putting little details, trust me, we'll put details in, but we don't really need to stat every organization because it's not like we're going to roll every organization's turn. We'd be here forever. Yes, we'll roll every in-game week. We'll roll the entire city's worth of organizations. We can usually just hand wave it because we're playing on the character scale. So unless it's something we really need to know, or we're attacking an organization, or something like that, we don't really need their stats. So what else? We have our transit line. I kind of want to add a bit of detail to that. Just another note, really. So we'll place down our little note marker. Transit hub. Of course, unfortunately, this isn't visible because it's in one of the map tools sub-windows. I'm just noting that it is the transit hub that it goes. Transit between floors. Up and down, because this is a multi-level area. It has this entire underground city section and an above-ground city section. As mentioned, we're like 1 or 2 stories below ground here currently, in session terms. Transit between the floors. Just noting transit on various train lines. I also sort of want to note where it goes, but we also need to actually decide that for the most part. We also need to figure out what is under the park. There was a park above ground in this grid, but it's likely not going to mirror a park underground. So we're going to have to figure out what to put there. However, like I mentioned, the arcologies will remain because they have underground entire sections. Could also work on the interiors of the arcologies. If we really wanted, I mean, it's not like they have different cultures here, but we could, I mean, they have slight different, I say different cultures. The fun thing about certain arcologies is you could have entirely different cultures in the self-contained arcologies. But this area, at least the way we've set it up, is very much one sort of unified area. But given that it is a lower district and we've decided it is sort of like lower, not as an underground, of course it's underground, but this entire district sort of overrun with the local gangs running it. So we'll sort of say, of course the cultures here would likely be more gang-oriented. So certain arcologies might affiliate with certain gangs more than others. And of course not every gang's bad, but like they would more associate with those than like cultures. Of course, not every arcology has its own culture. Over in the Empire, that's where I'm from. In the Empire, like we're imperial. We're very unified. Very, what's the word for that? There's a word for it. I forget the word, but uniform. It's not uniform, but like the Empire's very culturally just the Empire. We follow mostly the same stuff. I mean, under each individual lord, but each lord has their own. Yes, homogenous. That's it. Thank you. Yeah, the Empire is more homogenous than like some some areas. So we're very much under each lord, but even each lord's very similar in their standing for the most part. While here, where we're mapping's the Terran nations, and there's so many different Terran cultures that, like, in one city, you could have a lot of different cultures and the like. But I mean, more so sort of here. We're currently, like, map-wise, I'm not sure if we have the overworld map. We do, actually, because we did the we were working on part of the war between the two factions on this world. There's a war going on between two factions on the world. Our mercenary Yelena Aldis traveled basically on a special mission to retrieve a diplomat whose ship crashed, to try and retrieve them before the enemies are able to get in the gang infested, overrun sort of city district behind enemy lines. So I think we have, it might not be on the map, but it might. We have a lot of maps, so I'm not sure I can even find it. It should be listed as the border. Yeah, here it is. No, this is the zoomed in version. No, we only have our sides. We noted on the way zoomed in version, not sure if it's visible, we do have things sort of blocking the screen. This is the front lines of where the war between the two factions are going. There's a city or an outpost here and here, several kilometers away. Every square, I believe, is 500 meters. So yeah, a few kilometers away, there's an encampment and a city even further. I don't think we noted where the enemies' cities were, but we're a ways behind the line, but close enough that we could get our mercenaries in to try and retrieve the target. Let's see. Now, the difficult part, refinding where I put the map. This is the right one, yeah. Like I always say, I should probably rename the maps a bit better. I sort of want the city to be relatively big, but I also know that the overrun part of the city is not exceptionally large. Let's do a quick measurement. By that I mean we pull out our little ruler. Every square, of course, on this scale is 50 feet. So we just move the 0 over. 16,500 feet. That should be 5 kilometers, but I'll double check. Yep, 5 kilometers. And we've decided that at least one square or two squares over, it's still roughly under gang control. From one of our previous sessions, we know that this area is. So I'm thinking it's going to be a sort of 15 by 15 kilometer section of the megacity is going to be gang controlled, give or take. Of course, other sections can still have gangs and the like, but like that's going to be the heavily controlled area, which we should probably make note of. So that's what we'll do. Here we are. gang-controlled area is going to be 10 km by 15 km. Yeah, that adds up because that's 5, 10, 15. Yeah, so 10 by 15 kilometers. And the rest is going to be normal city, which means likely map-wise, on the other map, that places this city likely a bit further north than, well, than we showed when we zoomed over to the other map. So it's probably going to be a bit northern because it's a rather large city. Of course, the city's larger than just the gang control area, so. How big do we want the city area? Probably 100? That's not like pure city. I mean, including residential stuff. We'll say it's probably about 100 by 100 kilometers, give or take, like a heavy city, sort of. Like I said, it's not all like skyscrapers and stuff, but overall, which we'll make note of. City total, including residential, is approximately 100 kilometers by 100 kilometers. Maybe a bit less. Maybe 50 by 50. Well, add a maybe. I mean, if we're including residential, probably 100 by 100. Okay. What else did we wish to note? Let's actually take one of our notes up north. Last time we were working on this map, we noted a bit about the gang that controls the industrial area, but I didn't really put a little note marker for myself. Let's see whether I can't find those notes. Interact. City underground base map. Gang in the northern section controls part of the industrial district as its territory. Stays in disused sections of the underground industrial plant. Sells the chemicals, supplies the drug trade. Tried to get into production, but got in trouble with the larger gang. Mostly only deals in their own territory because of that. There we are. So yeah, that entire block is info on them. We'll just put that on the map. There we are. They might not even be a larger gang, but we do know that they control a lot of territory. At the very least. Especially when compared with the gang op units working for. Well, we're working for a government who's tied with the gang and funding them, technically. They're supporting us because we're sort of behind enemy lines. Hard to get supplies from the allied government when you're far behind enemy lines. But they just run out of a small section of the arcology, so. Meanwhile, the gang to the right that we dealt with before are one of the larger ones. I mean, statistically though, they're going to have like what? Minus 20 health? Maybe not entirely minus 20, maybe minus 10. The in one of our previous sessions of Solo Sunday, in which we actually play the game, basically the local gang we tried to make a deal with, not the industrial one or the one we're part of, one of them was attacked by the enemy government trying to achieve their target. And basically, simply enough, one of their strongholds was technically destroyed. Well, not really destroyed, but ruined. They lost their stronghold and lost a lot of members of their gang, which will technically deal like maybe 1 point of health damage. They lost maybe an elite unit or two. That might be 2 health points. If they were just standard elite units, not like good elite units, that might be 1, 2 health points. But losing the actual base is like minus 20 health, but it wasn't destroyed. They could probably reoccupy it. It's like 10 health they would have lost. Something like that. And that's where organization rules come in handy. Because you can determine, like, is their organization forced to disband? How much money are they going to have to spend to repair? That kind of thing. Which, let's assume 12 points of damage. That's what? Quick math. $1,200,000 is what their gang would have lost organization-wise. Not even including having to hire more people, which is cheap. It's like 100,000 for a worker unit, but assuming if they want more elite units, there'll be a bit more. 200,000 maybe a bit more. So 1,400,000 to 1,800,000, 1,600,000, something like that. It's not even counting supplying those units. But hopefully you get the point. Like, that's basically why organization rules exist, to determine whether you've damaged an organization to forcing it to disband and all that, and what actions it can take. I say what actions it can take. Organizations can technically take, like, any action a person can take, and more, but, like, you know, like stats-wise, what modifiers do they get? Let's see. So, if one's wondering, there's quite a bit of benefit to starting an organization. Why don't you just start an organization? A, there's a role required to, like, finance and all that to start an organization. 2, let's assume you succeed at financing your organization. You also need to throw down some money to start your organization. You then need to hire a worker, and your organization is vulnerable. When you start an organization, you start with, like, ones in all the stats at the base purchase, which isn't bad. Like I mentioned, like, it's just on assist checks, so it's not like getting a -5 on what you do. It's just on, like, assist checks, which still gives you a significant chance to succeed with a bit better than 50% chance to succeed on a +2 on whatever you're doing. But, like, you're probably not going to have enough stats to defend your organization if somebody attacks it. Like, they don't even need to attack it physically. They can just slander your organization, and if you try and recover, they're probably going to maybe force your organization to disband. Like, it's just going to cost you money if you don't invest into it, which is why you don't just be like, hey, I'm just some mercenary man. I'm going to found an organization just so I can get a +2 in my bonuses. It's probably going to cost you money if you have enemies, because they'll be like, hell, even if you don't have enemies, another mercenary organization is probably going to be like, can we run them out of business? Can we buy their organization out? And then it's they don't even need to buy you out. They could just cost you money until your organization is forced to disband. Then they can just hostile take over your assets, what little assets you put into it. But like I said, you need to invest some money to start an organization, which is why you don't just start one without investing into it. You likely want a bit more than the very base invested into it, which takes a lot more money, because every step of stats and everything you purchase costs money. And of course, people can turn your workers against you. Just because you have workers working for your organization, they have loyalty scores and all that. So, if you're smart, get their workers to strike. Then what? Their productivity stops. They're gonna still have to pay them or not. If they don't pay them, the workers might leave. I mean, you're probably not gonna want to pay them if they're on strike or something. But I mean, you can basically make an organization's day real bad by like doing that kind of thing. Or just undercut the competition. If nobody wants to work for them, they can't get worker units, then they can't make money. Entire campaigns have been run entirely on organization and nation scales, or even fleet battles and all that. Of course, this is sci-fi and all that. We have FTL, giant fleets. We're very much, what's the word I'm looking for? Large scale sci-fi. The entire, I mean, we cover a portion of the galaxy, but everything takes place throughout a galaxy. Of course, we follow some rules, as in like travel times and all that kind of thing. Unless you have a jump drive, but then your jump drive has to recharge. We'll get into all that in our FTL lore video eventually. But in simple terms, there's a lot of we go large scale. We go far larger scale than a lot of modern sci-fi. Dyson swarms, billions upon billions of people. Not every system has a Dyson swarm, of course. I've probably been over this before. Nations in Galactic Requiem don't just build Dyson swarms, because I mean, everybody wants one or two Dyson swarms or something like that. But if you have too many Dyson swarms are so vast that you have cultural shift. For example, in a Dyson swarm, anything on your Elysian Earth that you can think of that's a small fad has probably a planet or two's worth of population dedicated entirely to it. If it's just a small fad that like 5 people on old Earth Elysia like Dyson Swarm scale is that vast. So cultural shift and like ideas and all that kind of stuff, rather hard to contain in a Dyson Swarm. Like there just comes a point where you're putting too much governing effort into the Dyson Swarm that's just not worth it. So there's a limit to how many Dyson Swarms a nation will usually build. But, we still have Dyson Swarms. Several of them. So, we're talking that kind of scale. And of course, sectors and subsectors, and unlike Traveler, I mean, I like a lot of Traveler, but unlike Traveler, our planetary populations are far larger. That's one thing I've always found insane about Traveler. They're like, planetary population, a few thousand, a million's a lot, 10 million's a lot. No. Planets here, 10 billion is like the average. You will likely not, I mean, it's not like you won't find a planet with less than 10 billion. They're out there. But like 10 billion is the average population of a world. And then of course, I'm talking like your average world, not the averaged population. Of course, ecumenopolises really do be skewing those results. Ecumenopolises, of course, being world cities, which can have up to like, I believe, 1 trillion? I'd have to bring up my sheet. Ecumenopolises can have a lot of people. And of course, ring worlds, bishop rings, Banks orbitals, O'Neill cylinders, McKendree cylinders, artificial worlds, basically. All that kind of thing. And, if you don't want a Dyson swarm, but you just want to be insane, you can always have a ring world and then be like, okay, we have a ring world. What if we made it a ecumenopolis ring world, which is a world city ring world instead of a ring world with like habitat on the surface, a ring world with just full city surface, which of course has still less than a Dyson swarm, but you know, more than enough, more than likely, for any number of population. But that's where the benefit of a Dyson swarm comes in. The benefit of Dyson swarm with a ring world, of course we have artificial gravity, but it's far easier to use spin gravity. Ring worlds generally use spin gravity. And so you really can't just easily, without using artificial gravity, habitate a under construction ring world. Not easily. Because, I mean, I suppose there's ways you could go about it. But, like, you probably want it to be done before you can actually get the atmosphere on it and all that. You probably have to live in it before that point. But with a Dyson Swarm, just make one station at a time. Sure, every station's a bit smaller, about the size of a city, unless you're making your Dyson Swarm with some McKinley cylinders instead of O'Neill cylinders. Of course, you can mix and match, have O'Neill and McKinley cylinders. But basically, we're talking, you know, modular. You can habitate it as you go, as opposed to waiting for it to be done. Let's see. So yeah, we do a mix of high sci-fi, high population. I say high sci-fi. I mean like relatively low sci-fi-ish. I mean, of course there's plasma weapons, there's laser weapons. It's not like entire factions don't dedicate themselves to it. Of course we have starships and space navies, but like probably the most common weapon in the galaxy is still the good old bullet-throwing assault rifle. I mean, I say that, but like, you can equip planets and planets and planets worth of people with laser weapons, and you're not going to, you know, like, you're not going to run out. It's not like they're rare or anything. It's just assault rifles work, are far cheaper to build, take far less tech, so you can build them pretty much anywhere. So, you know, like, the galaxy runs on ballistics. Not really, but like, I mean, it's not like you can't walk into any weapon shop and be like, yo, I want a laser rifle. They'll have a laser rifle. They'll have multiple. You have a wide variety. But, like, you get my point. Let's see. So, I have to bring up the right file there. There we go. That's something we can do. What does the factory district produce? I mean, a lot of them are run down, and I assume they produce a wide variety of things, but what primarily? Currently, they're probably building a lot of military equipment. Okay, let's note that in two places. First, we'll note it on the actual token. That also gives us a really neat series of options for the bot. As they're producing military supply here, and we're technically behind enemy lines, we might get a mission if the bot wants to give us that kind of mission to basically sabotage their production. which would help our allied war effort. Of course. Of course, we must remember that the hotkeys do not correspond to the document we're typing in, and will mute myself mid-sentence if I press them. Whoops. So yes, if the bot allows, or we don't even need the bot for that, we can choose to try and sabotage that if we ever figure out that they produce military supply there. Help our allied war effort. To be fair, Juliana Aldous, our mercenary adventurer, she doesn't really care about the conflict. She cares that the enemy faction that they're against is working with an off-world faction that she hates, but, like, Juliana Aldous is a mercenary. She could care less about the whole war effort unless they pay her. As she's in it for revenge against the off-world faction and the money. Honestly, the money's mostly to fuel the revenge. Oh, no. There. Yeah, well. Yeah, we need to rearrange some of that stuff up there. But that's more map working. I really want to focus on little details and that kind of thing today. Transit the various train lines. We're not really sure the entire series of train lines yet. Just note that it runs throughout the city. And to nearby towns and other cities. We'll note that elsewhere, and we'll do subnote not in this district. Elsewhere, not in this district. The train lines are currently under military control because they're likely using them to get supplies to the front. Of course, this district has been abandoned and they've yet to send in the military to clear it out. Because why are they really going to fight their own citizens and all that in the middle of clear out the gang in the middle of a war that they're losing? We, of course, long ago, ran the several conflicts. We actually ran several days, maybe weeks, of the conflict. The faction that we're against failed basically all their roles. I believe it was so long ago. I'd have to check. But like they failed so many roles of their of the battle, and like they like held even. I forget whether it was in the air or in the ocean or something like that, but it was one of the non-land fronts. Or was it in space? It was there were like four fronts. There was land, air, ocean, and space. In all but one of the fronts, or maybe two, all but two of the fronts, they failed. They absolutely failed at the land front and basically couldn't get a break till they resorted to some scorched earth tactics. I believe they used some sort of orbital laser weapon or nanite biocontagion or something. I forget. Like the way this works is the way we're running this currently is I GM Galactic Requiem for players, but recently for our sessions, of course, the bot. It's the series of charts and so forth that we use to interpret and run it. So we have imperfect information. The bot basically decides the plot lines, the events, what's where, all that stuff. We just interpret it so it fits Galactic Requiem lore and all that. And so the impossible doesn't happen and all that. But basically, they used some sort of weapon. It was, I believe, shortly after an artillery barrage, but it was like some sort of biocontagion or like nanite thing or something like that. But our character never figured out what it was, so we, as the we never figured out what it was. And unfortunately, our broadcasting device doesn't have the ability to see. So even I don't know. I mean, I could probably send in some Imperials to go and look at it, but like, we'd have to go into the Terran nations. We're not really in the best of terms with the Terran nations. But point is, some sort of weapon of some variety that was like special, some sort of like non-standard weapon or something. Never figured out what it was, but it did sort of halt the advance. Oh yes, I remember. Not the weapon type, the when that happened. Um, we were on a mission to find like an enemy artillery position or something. We were basically heading behind enemy lines with a little force. We were working more directly with the military, not really with the mercenaries at that point. And we went in there and basically failed all of our tracking rolls, all of them, forever. Every navigation roll failed terribly. So many ones were rolled or something like that. And basically had to turn around and just leave without finding the objective or completing anything, and return to find contact lost with a few bases and some weird stuff going on and all that. But, we got our pay, worked there for a while, then, well, worked at the same faction, but got a more specialized mission. Because, I mean, our character, of course, is a caster. Sort of. A tier 2 caster, not the best at the magical stuff, but casters are rare. Magic's rare. Relatively rare. I mean, I say magic, it's more so psionic, sort of magic, sort of psionic. But anyway, it's rare. And so it was decided that our mercenary would be far more valuable, doing a bit more, and also we get paid more, by the way. That's one of the reasons we decided to swap. We get paid more. Um, we'd be a bit more useful doing more specialized missions instead of on the front lines as a frontline combat troop, given the fact that casters are like what? 1 in 10 to 100,000 or more, depending on the world. Some worlds are more caster heavy, some are less caster heavy. So, like, it can go all the way to like 1 in a million. So, like, more valuable, not there. Of course, there's different tiers of casters. You might pick up on the fact that I said we're tier 2. It goes all the way to tier 4, which are like the best casters. Tier 0 are the worst, tier 4 are the best. Our character's tier 2. The best you can be without having the caster class. We mostly did that. We're also playing as an average NPC class, mostly for the fact that it allows us to show off all the options of Galactic Requiem, as opposed to playing a dedicated class. That way we can be like, here's how casting works, here's how hacking works, here's how this works and that works. It gives us opportunity. I mean, it's not like it's unbalanced or anything, to be fair. It's just theoretically, you're supposed to go with normal classes. It's not unbalanced because technically any and every NPC uses the average NPC class. So, and like, it's not like it's special or anything. It's just the only special thing about the average NPC class, technically, is it's versatile. It has one special ability. Like every other class has talents and all that kind of stuff that make them have special stuff. The one special thing the average NPC class has is it can steal the ability of any other class. That way I don't need to math out the class for every NPC. If it's like, oh, he has to have 3 levels of smart hero and 2 levels of field officer to achieve this. So much easier to make an NPC by going average NPC, take the talents from both of those. You know? I mean, so like the NPCs do it, so it's not like it's bad, but like, if you really wanted, I suppose you could cheese it. Like that's the one thing. You have to have restraint when using the average NPC class, because you can theoretically cheese it. You can be like, okay, mathematically, what's the absolute best series of talents to have that complement each other that you can't usually take? I mean, I guess you could do that, but I mean, I've never really done that with it whenever I play as the average NPC class. And sometimes I'll let my players play as the average NPC class, and they've never done that either. We have really good players. They don't really go like, what's the best way I can absolutely cheese the system? Of course, like my players have on occasion asked something along the lines of, what's what's the best melee build? Like what would you suggest for like the best melee build? And like, that's reasonable. It's not like trying to break the game or anything. It's like I want to play a melee build and I want to be like useful in it. But yeah, like so like I guess you could cheese the average NPC class, but theoretically you could just cheese multi-classing or things like that. So obviously the drawback of the average NPC, like wow, it can take every talent, but like it has slightly worse skill points than some classes. It's not good at everything. Its base statistics aren't as good as you could get by specializing. You get better saves with a tough hero. You get better saves with a strong hero. You technically get better, like, I think you get better health with a tough hero and strong hero. But you get better, like, skill points with a average NPC, unless you're going smart. If you're going smart hero or something like that, you get better skill points with that than you would with the average NPC. There's benefits and drawbacks to it. Well, that's sure a tangent, but that's what we're known for. Let's see. So we know that the arcology blocks, I mean, do we actually have that noted? We probably do, but we'll make another note of it. Why not? They are often controlled or have gangs in them. There we are. Are often controlled or have gangs in them. What else? Here I suppose we could map out a bit more. Starting to feel like that's going to be what we're going to have to do at some point. But that always brings up the question, is it necessary? We could just leave it as text and figure it out. Once more, it brings us back to the traveler statement of map only as really necessary. Hmm. I do want to figure out what's under the park. Ooh, we could have a utilities section, sort of like government/utilities, I suppose. It would be run down, or more like a community center sort of thing. Yeah, why not? Actually, I have the perfect image prepared for that. We'll use... There's one that's very community center-like. Where is it? We'll have a courtyard and another little bit. Okay, so we'll start with this. Size, free size. Sort of across like that. Then in front of it, we'll have a little complex, which we'll use. Which image do we want to use for that? We'll use this, why not? No, this one. The glass roof makes it feel more... Both of those. I don't know, it just makes it feel more community center-like. Okay, here we go. Oh. Of course the goal is to not lose them by pasting them on top of things. Okay, I want this a bit smaller, actually. Like so. Have that run like that. Of course, we need to rotate things just a bit. There. There. And we'll note that it's sort of a run-down community center sort of thing. So, grab a object. Nope, we need the blank one. There we go. Run-down community center area. There we are. And that's what that area will be. Of course, we could do something like... No, 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 no. I had an idea. So the reason we work on a black background here is mostly because if we put... I like putting an object down. If we put an object down on the layer, it will accidentally grab it if I try and drag and drop and so forth, which can get annoying when you're trying to arrange a city. I suppose we could draw a background in, technically speaking, to make it more visual. Assuming we don't have anything on the draw explore. No, we have something on the background. What is it? No, not... No, it's all hidden. Good, good. That means we can do this. We just need to find an acceptable texture. Tiled? No. No. I mean, we could go with like concrete, but I'm not sure if it will look nice, given the scale. Like, the blocks are going to be large. Then we can always draw over it, honestly, or remove it. It should be the biggest, like, image on the thing, so it's not like it'll be hard to find it amongst any other drawings we do. And theoretically, since it's a drawing, it should be below all the tokens, and it won't be selectable. There we are. I don't know. I don't know if I like it. Then again, I see that might just be because I'm so used to the background being black when working on it. Hmm. Yeah, no. We'll leave it like this for now. At least until we get like the city down or something. Then we'll think about adding a background. Because it would make sense if it was like, like shown between or behind the buildings. But if it's just open, like, yeah. Okay. So we have a rundown community center. Actually, it makes perfect sense for it to be there. I like it. Sort of. It would make more sense if it was above ground, but it makes sense for it to be under the park. Good enough. Ooh. We could even add like an elevator thing up to the park from it. That would be nice. Hmm. Well, I think I am going to quickly grab a coffee. And then we will likely work some more. We will do our best to go for a bit more, as we've been doing a lot of shorter streams lately. Kind of want to make up for that and do a bit of a longer one. But it is coffee time, so I'm gonna quickly grab a coffee. I will be back as soon as I nope, no coffee yet. There we are. I'll be back. There we are. We have wrangled the conscripts into getting the coffee prepared. So, assuming nothing broke while we were wrangling the conscripts, we did, of course, leave 2 conscripts in this room while we got that prepared. And, well, they do have a habit of breaking things. Not those 2 in particular, but conscripts in general. Let's see. So we have 3 areas sort of marked out. What do you want to say about the Rundown Community Center? I don't think it's specifically under anybody's control. Maybe not. Maybe not. We'll figure that out with the bot at some point. See, that's the great thing about nation and organization rules. We can, theoretically, at some point, whenever, literally like whenever, basically do overworld scale, like territorial, both influence or direct combat, like things to see who's who's gaining control of certain territories, that kind of stuff. Which is, well, what we do here. Well, we do small scale, personal scale, or galactic scale, all in between. Like game-wise, we do all in between. So far, we've been focusing on character scale for the last 2 campaigns. Eshadon, which was our starting campaign. Eshadon Candido Okoro, I think. And then Juliana Aldous, our current mercenary. I mean, technically, Eshadon was a mercenary, wasn't he? Anyway, at some point, we'll get to other campaigns, both large and small. I just sort of very much want to continue the character scale stuff, because that's like, you know, what players see. I mean, like I said, players do play on the, like, nation scale and the organization scale. They do, but, like, when somebody wants to play a tabletop RPG, they usually, when they first want to play a tabletop RPG, they want to play as a character. You know? And so we're presenting all of that first, showing the galaxy through the eyes of a character, as opposed to large scale stuff. I mean, we could always do large scale stuff. 1 second. But I mean, it's complicated. Characters. I mean, you can even have characters in large scale stuff. I mean, it's an option, both as names and as characters. That's why we use D20. Because I've probably said this before too. Look, I've probably said everything before. um Basically, D20 allows us, or we're talking like 3.0 to 3.5, which is what we run on of, because not only because of the OGL, but like because it scales. Scales as in there are so many examples and like additional contents and so forth for it, because and they all scale 1 to 1. We have it set so rules wise you can shoot a pistol at a starship. It won't do anything, but it doesn't do anything not because, oh, a pistol doesn't do anything because scale differences or some boring thing like that. Oh, yes, it's divided by 5, and like small arms just don't work on. No, 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 no. It doesn't work here because a pistol does 2d6 damage, while a starship, like let's say a battleship for ease of use, battleship has damage reduction 120. Theoretically, I mean, of course, you could board the battleship and like shoot the reactor core with your pistol. You'll probably do something, maybe. I mean, depends on what you shoot, to be fair, but I'm not talking from the outside, of course. Like, you can shoot the consoles and hopefully do something, you know? But like from a outside starship, you can shoot it with a pistol, probably not going to do anything because the R120. But shoot it with a tank, might achieve something, which is what I mean by it scales. Probably not going to hurt a tank with a pistol because a tank has like 20 to 60 damage reduction. It's probably not going to hurt a tank with a pistol. But it all is on the same scale, technically speaking. Like, health-wise, the starship's health is roughly, I mean, it is on the same scale as a person. I mean, a starship has like 100,000 health, but like, you get the point. Person at most, not at most, but like, person has like 20 health. So, you know, stuff like that. Organizations also have health and all that, and you can damage them, but it's not like you're shooting a person or object or something. You have to damage it in a more indirect way. You know what I mean? I mean, I suppose you could like shoot the people at the organization, then that will like work. But it's specifically set up so like it's one health point for like 100 workers. So, you know, it's like not easy. It's probably easier to just like influence them out of existence. But basically, point is, you can affect that as a character. Every scale, it affects every other scale. And there's not some weird conversion you need to do to be like, well, you have to convert it to this, or yeah, and this just doesn't hurt this because small arms don't work on large scale things. No, no, it's just damage reduction. Says that like number 150 damage reduction. Suppose if you get like something that lowers the damage reduction, use some chemicals, make the armor weaker, then maybe it'll work. Like scale goes to scale. Keep checking to see whether my conscripts have completed the coffee. Um, but yeah, that's like the short of it. It's very much any scale. Like we've had tank crews, we've had mech crews. We had an entire play-by-post campaign about a mech crew. 2, technically. I mean, we've had more play-by-post, but specifically, off the top of my head, we had 2 mech crew play-by-posts, which was always fun. It's a bit slower than a normal campaign. Let's see. Yeah, of course, we have mechs too. All sorts of stuff. Starships, drop troops, mechs. Your average sci-fi stuff, you know? Aliens, of course. Of all variety. All that stuff. Let's see. I really gotta finish working on refining things. As I always say, I need to refine nation rules and organization rules. They need refining. Hacking rules need a little bit of refining. Casting rules need definition. Technically, hacking needs more definition than refining, I'll be honest. Basically, it's a bit confusing for players exactly what actions each program does. So we need to iron that out a little bit. Iron out that, yeah, mostly what each program does, define it. Because they all have uses, but they're a little vague. For instance, it's, I shouldn't, I suppose it's not very mean, but one of my players decided to play a hacker, and it follows somewhat similar to the cyberpunk hacking rules, the old ones, somewhat similar, and at least in program wise. So one of them decided to. I'm like, okay, so you can make your own programs and all that, and they're like, yeah, I'll buy the starter package and make a few programs because I'm like spec'd into hacking. I'll make a few programs, and they made some good programs. But one of them that they made was a compiler program. They coded a compiler program with no compiled subprograms. So they so they send me the sheet and it's like, here's the programs I want to program. And I'm like, okay, this one doesn't do anything. It's a worthless program. You made a compiler that compiles nothing. And they're like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, no, you gotta. And I explained to them, of course, how to do it, how to properly make a compiler program. But short of it is, some of the things need a little bit of definition because it's not entirely clear in the rule book what exactly you need to do to make them work. For instance, it basically just says said under compiler, something along the lines of compiles other programs. It doesn't describe exactly that you need to make it by adding other programs, that they work at its power level, and et cetera, et cetera. So a little bit of definition is needed for the players. Same with casting. But casting also needs a little bit of refinement, more so than just definition. Maybe hacking needs a little bit of refinement. Nations, organizations, those need quite a bit of refinement because the parts of them are a bit unclear, but also a bit need some work. I mean, both systems work. They work. You can run an entire campaign with them as is. But like, there are a few bits that are like just not defined enough. A few bits that are a little bit need just a little bit of modification and tweaking. And once that gets set, like, well, that'll be very nice for it, because then that'll be like perfect. Like that, I guess that's like one of the few things that needs doing. We also need to add more items. It's not like we don't have infinite items. I say infinite, like we technically loosely like have a copious amount of items in game, but like actually just listing them down, which I avoid doing mostly because it's formatting. I've also talked about this, but like a lot of the work of Galactic Requiem at this point, we've had the lore for years and years and years and years. We've had the items for years and years. A few less years than we had the lore, but we've had the items and all the equipment and stuff for years. We can also design them on the fly. But listing everything that exists down in one coherent place, I've avoided. Mostly because a lot of it's scattered throughout my copious files, but also it's a lot of formatting. When I write rules, don't get me wrong, it's theoretically, debatably, a boring process. But writing rules, to me, is more engaging than writing down and formatting items. Because writing and tweaking rules is like solving a problem. You know, it's like a puzzle you're putting together. Does this stat work here? How am I going to fix this statistical issue? It's a puzzle that you're solving. It's engaging. You come up with ideas and solutions. Formatting is just, is this formatted right? Hit enter here, click here, hit enter, hit down 5 times, hit enter 3 times, delete this, hit space here. It's boring. And then like, even if there are things that need editing or updating, it's boring. It's like the statistics of a lot of cybernetics in Galactic Requiem are off, which is one of the reasons I don't have them listed down, because I need to edit them. I know what the numbers should be, and for those I don't know what the numbers should be, I can easily translate the numbers to the right ones. But it's a lot of busy work. It's not like I'm solving anything. It's not like it's fun going, this is 2, but it should be 1. You know, that's not fun work. Neither is just formatting them to put them into the document, because it's like I said, it's hit enter, hit space. It's busy work. While actually writing the rules is fun work. It's like, how do I edit this? What do I modify to get this number to fit within this parameter? It's fun work, you know? Although admittedly, I wouldn't call it fun work. World building's more fun than that, but like, admittedly, when I work on statistics and rules, I sort of just zone out and get in a mode where I just sort of flow through the rules. I like write them down. I do the math and figure it out. And sometimes I'll look back and go, how? What mathematical equation did I find that worked for that? Like, I have to reverse engineer it sometimes because just the trails of thoughts and solutions and stuff to make things work, like, it's a thing. But yeah, it's far more fun than formatting. And then, of course, next is the world building, which is more fun than working on the rules. And then more fun than that, at least for me, is playing the game, which, as I've also said, I rarely get to do, which is why, well, it's actually one of the reasons why we have the bot. It's not like an actual bot or an AI or anything. It's, like I said, it's a series of charts that we just roll on and interpret from. I mean, they're long lists. They give us pictures and words and stuff, and we interpret them. But basically, it allows it so I don't know what's going to happen. I can actually play the game instead of GMing it all the time. I also worked on the bot to make it so not only can I play the game, but I can test the game. Because often, when writing rules and all that, I'll want to test them. How else are you going to test the rules without, like, I suppose, like, there's 2 forms of testing. First, I like testing using the bot, so I know, like, how it'll roughly work. And then we move into player testing, which we test the rules with the players. And then finally, we either approve or don't approve the rules. Although usually, when we get it to bot testing alone, I'll be like, okay, so yeah, this works or this doesn't work. And if it works, we'll move it to the players, and it's just a sort of formality, you know? It's more, we're just making sure there's nothing that breaks with them, sort of like a beta testing of the rules with the players, and then we confirm their worthiness as rules. But I do enjoy going overboard with not really with rules. I don't mean like rules heavy. I mean like having rule systems for everything. Like we have an entire weather system. We have rules for how FTL works. What happens if you get exposed to FTL? I like having the rules for it available, you know? But of course, as I always say, the rules in Galactic Requiem And the fact that we run it in D20 is only there to facilitate the lore. We are playing the lore for the most part. The game is there to make sure the lore works in a consistent and reasonable fashion. Then, of course, yeah. Which is why I say, as like cheesy as it sounds, it's why I always say Galactic Requiem is a world more so than it is a tabletop RPG, because we run it like a world. It's not like, here's the campaign module. It's a sandbox of, maybe you have contracts, maybe you work for a faction so you can't leave those contracts. Here's the world. You have choices. If you want to break your contract, sure, but there are consequences. Here's a quest. You can forsake the quest if you want. You know, I mean, like, reasonably, if you're in a military and you're like, I'm not going to go on that mission. Well, then, you know, like, bad things might happen. But, like, Julian Aldous is a mercenary. Nobody can tell Julian Aldous what to do. Loosely, I mean, sort of, you know, like within the law. I mean, if she goes around shooting people, they're going to be like, you know, things are going to happen. It's a reactive world in that sense. Like, it's a world, you interact with it. Of course, you can have quests and missions and all that. You can take contracts, you can save the world, big events, all that kind of stuff. All that's there. But it's not like that's necessary. That's not the game. And everything in it has effect. If you have a giant save the world plot and you go, I'm not going to save the world, somebody else might. Somebody else might. And if you don't, and nobody else does, that's now a thing that's occurred. You don't stop the Imperial superweapon, the Imperial superweapon goes off. And we destroy that world. That world's gone forever. In all of Galactic Requiem. Not just your campaign. In all of the lore of Galactic Requiem. You failed. The mission was not complete. That world is gone forever. And that's why I say it's more of a living world that basically reacts as a sort of thing, and you play it as more that than like a game. Because it's all there. Every player we've ever had, their stuff basically builds upon the world. And from there, well, that's where we are today now. The collapse of the Council, the shattering of the Empire, the Second Galactic War, the results of the First Galactic War, entire sectors gone. We have lost sectors. All the way to small scale stuff. Like, it's not always large, grand scale. Sometimes it's players running a small business, a trader just selling goods here and there. All the way to fleet battles and fate of sectors. And then, of course, there's eldritch monstrosities and all that. Anyway, hopefully, 1 second. Nope. Nope. Coffee's not ready yet. Okay. Longest cup of coffee ever. Not really, but like it's taken a while. That's why we can't trust conscripts with it. You tell the conscripts, make a coffee. Next thing you know, half the starship's burning. You're not even sure how. It's made out of metal. It's not flammable. It's not even a flammable metal. It's made out of space alloys. It's not flammable, but you know, you like coffee, conscript, go get coffee. Bring me a coffee. And then half the starship's on fire, and you're just shocked. You're just shocked. As the saying goes, you leave a conscript in an empty room, they'll somehow break the empty room. I'm telling you, they could break one of your Elysian Nokia phones. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, a conscript can break anything, but those phones are unbreakable. I suppose it's an enigma. They should never be put in the same room together. Paradox, that's what I'm looking for. Let's see. So, of course, we have sectors to work on at some point. We have to work on the sector, this sector and the other sector. We have quite a bit. We'll be at this forever. Not forever today, but like in general. So, unfortunately, we have a bit more time. Let's see. Of course, there are a few campaigns I need to prepare, which is one of the reasons that I have to go soon. Of course, Sunday, we have our, well, Friday. I'm not sure why I say Sunday. It's our Sunday. We've been over this many times. Our calendar works different than yours, as you might be able to see in the corner over there. It's the 12th day of the 7th month of the abbreviated year 7894. It's obviously a longer date than that. We're not part of your timeline or anything, but abbreviated year 7894. But calendar works different. Technically, if you want to know, we're like 2 days ahead of you, like weekly wise. So for most of you, it's like Wednesday, which is why it's Worldbuilding Wednesday. But like for us here in the galaxy, it's Friday. And then on Friday, it's going to be Sunday, and we're going to run miscellaneous Friday on Sunday. Well, so, 2 days from now, it's going to be solo Sunday, which I have to prepare for. Then I have a campaign that I have to run on Sunday. Not solo Sunday, but other Sunday. And then I have to prepare, I have to write for our videos, our lore videos that we're eventually going to get out, hopefully, at the start of next month. So I have to do a lot of writing for that. And then, of course, I have to prepare for our news broadcast, our Galactic Requiem news broadcast. So there's that, which unfortunately we might miss because we're late on. Anyway. So there's that, and then there's the play by post campaign, which I don't really need to prepare for too badly. I mean, it's play by post. Then theoretically, there's another campaign of the week. Not sure if we'll run it for a while because we have to scheduling issues. And then on Sunday, maybe, depending on how long the campaign runs, we might play a game. Maybe some Angels Fall First again. Monday, theoretically, we'll release the news video. Otherwise, it will be the Monday after that. Then again, Worldbuilding Wednesday. And just a lot of writing and running matches between. And then Imperial Lording. Somebody's got to manage my 4-star systems. 3-star systems still, technically. Somebody's got to manage those star systems. So, there's that. Leading fleets, attending Imperial meetings, attending imperial parties, that kind of thing. So, lots to do. Anyway, I suppose that's good enough of a closing. So, I thank you all for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed. As always, I've been your host, Casimir Basilius of the Grand Dimensional Empire. And let's just make sure we save all of our files. Because, that's relatively important to do. Okay. Thank you all for stopping by. I hope you had a great time. And I'll see you all next time.